There is a lot going on in Final Fantasy VII beyond the scope of normal awareness, but I'm about to bring it all to light. This video will entail a detailed look at all the characters, the real Midgar, the real Materia, and the real Sephiroth. First, be advised if there should arise any copyright claim over music that caused this to be blocked in the future, a link will be provided for a new form in the description and the track removed. The FF7 remake has mostly remained true to the original story, just with a lot more added and a lot more epic. The Whispers are not necessarily there to enforce the original timeline, but a timeline which created them. Will any of these changes violate the esoteric pattern of Final Fantasy VII, such as that Zack never having died? Actually, this is fitting for reasons I will discuss later. Things happen in a certain way and create an esoteric pattern in light of that which the characters symbolize. Where we see the scene at the end where Sephiroth brings Cloud into space, I believe is most revealing. The real Sephiroth is a tenfold system showcasing the creation process in the form of a lightning bolt. When the Sephiroth character ultimately wants is to create his own world in which he is God, perhaps through destroying the current world. But to start with, let's take a look at the real Materia. What Yuffie says here is a hint from the developers. Real Materia has little or nothing to do with battles. It describes the spiritual state and evolution of primordial matter and is a system of alchemy which focuses on the transmutation of the self via the Philosopher's Stone. Self-alchemy is exactly what one does in Final Fantasy VII when exploring different combinations of materia to arrive at a new and stronger or more able self. There are four types of real materia: Materia Prima, Materia Remota, Materia Proxima, and Materia Ultima. These are represented by the four huge materia that get placed into Bugenhagen's astronomy room, showcasing planet Saturn, whom Bugenhagen obviously represents. Santa Claus is based on the Saturnalia, and the god of the Old Testament does indeed say ho ho ho. Real materia comes from the Rosicrucians. To learn more about it, you'll have to make a deeper study into them and their papers. The Rose Cross itself is based on the master builder adept of the mystery school's Apostle Paul. The rose alludes to the thorns of Satan in his flesh. May the roses bloom upon your cross is to saying let there be thorns, and take up one's cross is a concept from Christianity taught by Jesus himself. Notice how Atlantis is shown in the background for the Rosicrucians. I'm not sure what kind of link the Order actually has with Atlantis, but it factors into Final Fantasy VII, where Atlantis represents Egypt and where Midgar represents Egypt and Atlantis, as well as the Norse Midgard. Shinra is spelled Shin-Ra, making it very clear. The Japanese Shin meaning real, genuine, new, true, or God, that God being Amun-Ra, the chief sun god deity of Egypt. That Midgar is Atlantis is made clear decades before the real Atlantis was found in the Rekot structure Eye of the Sahara. Their location on the world map is identical. They are both great cities in the shape of a circle, and Egypt was a colony of Atlantis. Midgard is called the Floating City, but Midgar in FF7 is inland. In the time of Atlantis, the northwestern region of Africa was an ocean. Please watch the Atlantis videos from Bright Insight channel if you'd like to know more. I guess this comment could be alluding to the upper class parts of Midgar built upon the plates, but to call Midgar a floating city in this context is incorrect. It ignores the slums, and the city is still connected to the ground. And we have the Midgar Serpent, which is shown in game as the Midgar Zolam, one of which was killed by Sephiroth and set on a pole. This is a rather deliberate portrayal of the serpent of Moses on the pole and Jesus on the cross. For as Moses lifted up the serpent on the pole, so too must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believes on him may have eternal life. A direct comparison is made of Christ to the serpent in the Bible, who says, "Ye shall not die but live," and many others exist. Does not your law say ye are gods? Said Christ, referring to Psalm 86, where the God of the Bible says you are gods. It was the serpent in the Eden who tempted them with its forbidden fruit to become gods, the original sin that destroys the golden age of Saturn, an age of benevolent, peaceful anarchy. Only the rich elite rulers truly feel like gods in this world. If everyone is a god, the comparison becomes meaningless. Moreover, the serpent offers the fruit, Christ offers the Eucharist of his flesh and blood, and drinking the blood is one of the plagues in Revelation. The sea, peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, became as the blood of a dead man, Jesus Christ, and they were given blood to drink, the Eucharist. Do a study on the serpent on the cross to see it is true. The thorn of Satan in Paul's flesh is called Jesus Christ. Paul, who has the Leviathan, the historic Apollonius of Tyana, and the mythical Jesus Christ. Now that we know Shin-Ra / Midgard is Egypt and Atlantis, it becomes clear that Barrett Walsh, leader of the rebel band Avalanche, is none other than Akhenaten, the rebel pharaoh who rebelled against the Amun-Ra priesthood. In the remake, however, it seems Barrett may not be the leader of Avalanche, but he has a limit break called Satellite Beam. This guy has his own personal satellite he can command to attack his enemies whenever Barrett has had enough. There are parallels to Barack Obama, except that Obama was never a rebel, but a likeness of Akhenaten. Some have suggested it may even be a clone of Akhenaten. There is a strong environmental theme in Final Fantasy VII of protecting the planet and shutting down progress. There are those among the Illuminati who blame the people for killing the planet or say things like humans are a virus when it is really the big corporations and those in power. Finally, Shin-Ra is an electric power company, and well, all of the Egyptian gods have a lot to do with electrical science, as shown on this website, Electric Egyptology. May 26th is the Egyptian holiday receiving of Amun-Ra, so of course the Shin-Ra rocket is called Shin-Ra 26. Kate Sith, the Shinra spy, is yet another indication. Cats were worshipped in Egypt. Sith brings to mind the Sith Lords from Star Wars. The real Jedi were the Jedi, Jedai, priest of Atlantis, and also based on the Djed of Egypt. Egypt is known as Chem, as in alchemy, thus Mako and Materia, which is alchemy, and was known as the land of the tree and the serpent, which alludes to Sephiroth, the son of Shinra scientist Hojo, infused with Genova cells and the most elite member of Soldier. The real Sephiroth is Jewish mysticism, a system that encompasses everything and the lightning flash of creation, to which Christ said, "I beheld Satan as the lightning falling from heaven." Notice the sum of the Sephiroth is 777, thus Final Fantasy VII, and the lucky sevens throughout the game. Final Fantasy VII would be the appropriate game to get into the Sephiroth and the Kabbalah. The 10 Sephiroth are created by the 3 veils of non-existence, which is the Queen of Heaven, or Goddess of Triple Veils, represented by Genova, whom Sephiroth will regard as his mother. Since Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism, it should come as no surprise that the Bible itself is Kabbalah and fits perfectly on the Tree of Life. The New Testament is itself Jesus crucified on the Tree of Life, and the 10 Sephiroth exist in 4 worlds, thus there are a total of 40 Sephiroth clones, and that is how the 39 books of the Old Testament. Cloud is called Spiky Head. His spikes are because he is representing the sun god Mithra and the Statue of Liberty, wherein the sun is made female again. See the article A History of the Female Sun. Tifa is the woman clothed with the sun. Christ returns with the clouds, so the name Cloud is esoteric. I mean, who names their child Cloud? It's absurd. Clouds conceal the sun and pour out the rain. Christ pours out the living water. Christ is also called the Cloud Rider. Sephiroth 6 Tiferet, or Tiferet, represents the sun and is called the Christ Center, therefore Cloud is actually a clone of Sephiroth. Cloud is killed by Sephiroth. Yes, killed. I don't care what anyone says, he was stabbed through the heart and Sephiroth jangled his sword around in his chest for quite a bit, as you can see in the original. This represents Jesus being crucified and then rising from the grave, as after that Hojo fixes him up in the experiment capsule and Cloud is out of it and then taken to Midgar by Zack, whom we may regard as the Jewish Messiah Yeshua, and Cloud becomes his living legacy, just as the Greek Jesus Christ becomes the living legacy of the Hebrew Yeshua. We see how Tifa, or Tiferet, represents the female sun, the woman clothed with the sun, thus she is able to help Cloud, the male sun god Jesus, recover his mind. Cloud and Tifa are intimately linked through the sun. Finally, if there is still any doubt, Cloud buys the Shinra Villa, which is directly next to the Costa del Sol sign. Sol means the sun. There are 2 beds in the Shinra Villa of Amon-Ra the sun god, one for Cloud and one for Tifa, the 2 sun gods of Final Fantasy VII. The price of 300,000 is, well, it has 6 digits and starts with 3, so 666, among other things, represents the sun. The gold saucer alludes to the golden age of Saturn, a time of benevolent anarchy, games, and prosperity. The owner, Dio, is an Italian word meaning God. Why does the manager walk around in his underwear? To symbolize Saturn and Dionysus, of course. There are 8 sections in the golden saucer, each having 7 passages to the others. On the outside, these are saucers, and the structure itself resembles the Tree of Life. But on the inside, they are called squares. Thus we have the occult concept of squaring the circle. One need only stay at the Haunted Ghost Inn to realize they are in a den of occultism, Satanism, and secret societies. Cloud must get the keystone from Dio, and this unlocks the Temple of the Ancients, which, surprise, is the pyramid, and becomes the black materia Sephiroth needs to summon Meteor, the asteroid Apophis, to bring about his destruction and recreation of the planet, or the Plan ET. The white materia wholly is sought to combat Sephiroth and Meteor, but as explained later by Bugenhagen, the object is to protect the planet. That includes protecting it from humans. The black and white materia are two sides of the same coin. As the gold saucer is Saturn's golden age, of course there is an event square for playing out scriptures. This of course alludes to the Bible. The gold saucer is also a pretty big rip-off. Earning its currency, the gold points, is especially annoying. It comes across as an amusement park, but really it represents the rich and powerful who are having their golden age of fun right now at our expense. Saturn was known for eating his children, and for Saturn to rule an amusement park for kids as well. Saturn is a god of time, so of course there is a prison in the desert, which is the desert of Seth, and one who is imprisoned is said to be doing time. The prison really represents the masses. I mean, does it make any sense for a prisoner to be pardoned if they can win in the chocobo races? You are going to let a serial killer loose just because he can win a competition? Yeah, right. Coral Town and Coral Prison represent the masses, and the gold saucer is the dwelling of the rich elite and secret societies such as the Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and the Saturn Brotherhood. Notice what is said about the promised land sought by the ancients. In the remake, Aerith calls them the Setra, not the Cetra, as in the children of Set/Seth. Saturn is based on Adam, Seth, and the Egyptian god Set. Saturn, or Satan, the murderer from the beginning, alludes to Cain killing Abel, which is based on Set killing Osiris. Remember the Israelites wandering for 40 years in the desert, looking for their promised land? Yeah. Cloud having his date in the golden saucer represents Christ's second coming. The most obvious choice is Aerith, who represents the prophets. Christ makes a point against the Pharisees that they killed the prophets. The Kabbalah and the Sephiroth are a tradition of the Hebrew-Egyptian Pharaoh Pharisees, therefore Aerith must be killed by Sephiroth. Aerith has powers such as speaking with the planet and knowing when someone has died. She has the powers of a prophet. Aerith is 22 years old, and 22 is the Master Builder, the 22 paths that connect 10 Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, the 22 Tarot cards of the Major Arcana, and the 22 chapters of the Revelation. This and her limit break the Great Gospel allude to the Bible and Christianity. Yuffie represents the followers and worshippers of Leviathan, Wutai's patron deity. That makes her represent the 5 foolish virgins that Christ will rebuke. Yuffie is the only one of the gates to give Cloud a kiss during the date, which produces an awkward silence. These are those who seek Jesus, but he rejects them, saying, "I never knew you." Yuffie is 16 years old. 16 is the tower in the Tarot, which alludes to Babylon and the Tower of Babel, and well, Pauline Christianity is Babylon, and the plagues against Babylon in the book of Revelation are upon Christians. The sea became as the blood of a dead man, they were given blood to drink, etc. Yuffie obtains the Leviathan Materia after doing the 5 Pagoda quest, ending with fighting her father Godo. Because Godo is the keeper of the Leviathan, he is a form of Apostle Paul, and once again Yuffie represents the children of Paul who would rather than earn or buy their materia, seek to steal it from Cloud and his allies. The Shinra Mansion is the Vatican. There are many connections of the Vatican to Egypt. Watch the video "This is Zion Crown Conspiracy," links in the description. The library is the Vatican archives, and the rest of the basement is the catacombs wherein Vincent, Apostle Peter, is sleeping in the coffin. The bones of Peter are said to be buried beneath the Vatican. Jesus prophesies Peter to be taken where he didn't want to go, which is what happened when he joined up with Paul. The lost number reduces down to 22, the Master Builder of Freemasonry and Apostle Paul, who called himself the Master Builder. The number is lost, as in occulted, and points to the fact that the wisdom it represents is taught in secret societies such as the Templars, Rosicrucians, and Freemasons. The Bible gives us an image of Peter, Simon Bar Jonas, but the real Peter was Simon Bar Jorah, a violent Jewish messiah in his own right, and arguably the first Robin Hood. Jorah led the peasants of Jerusalem in battle against Rome, but the elite did not want him to represent them. This led to a fallout, and Jorah and his band of mercenaries began looting and pillaging the rich to support his very men. Jorah was particularly cruel and terrorized all of Jerusalem, threatening to cut off everyone's finger if the Zealots did not return his wife, whom they kidnapped. The Zealots gave in and returned her. Thus Vincent is deeply distressed over an issue of love with Lucretia, the human mother of Sephiroth. Jorah leaps off the Trapian rock and falls to his death at the temple of Jupiter. Thus he is called Peter the Jew. Jupiter, get it? And the rock, he is also called the Rock, alluding to the Trapian rock where he died. Genesis and Sephiroth are very similar. There are clones of Sephiroth and copies of Genesis. Both are one-winged angels, Sephiroth having the left wing and Genesis having the right. There is a relationship between the biblical Genesis and the Sephiroth of the Kabbalah. It is said the Tree of Life first existed in the form of Primus, the six-sided star, and the abyss was caused by the original sin. Adam/Saturn rule over the golden age of paradise, and his 9 descendants together make the 10 primary patriarchs, beginning with Adam and ending with Noah, who is the first and the last, becoming the Adam of the world after the flood. "26 is the number that unlocks everything. Check out my old video, the number 26 Mystery of God. The real meteor that the Sephiroth have conjured is the asteroid Apophis. It's not a meteor in Final Fantasy VII. It's too big to be a meteorite. But meteor was a spell in Final Fantasy VI, distinct and separate from meteo from Final Fantasy IV. So it was called meteor for this reason, which makes a better name for a spell than asteroid. Apophis is another name for the black dragon Apep. And why would you name an asteroid Apophis if you weren't expecting some serious business from it? Legends shall speak of sacrifice at world's end. Even if the morrow is barren of promises, nothing shall forestall my return. Genesis.
I gotta beat to let it fall down. Come on, step inside of my town. Hold your breath and don't think there's a room for better to lay at your feet. You got to give some point to the new man trying to run up my joint. Grab some traction, running high. Bet you get you down, gonna get you on the dark side. You are the one keeping me from doing what I do. But now I see you too. So I give it back to you.
rock where he died. Nanaki is named Red 13 as alluding to the 13 lunar cycles, and Nanaki is decoded as Nana the moon god, also called Sin, but this is before Final Fantasy X, where the mystery of the moon god Sin is explored in a much deeper and different manner. His father is Sito, Set O as in the Ouroboros serpent. The black dragon Apep was a form of Seth. Seth was the son of the biblical Adam, thus his grandfather Bugenhagen was the first Saturn. The second Saturn, or Satan, was based on the Egyptian Set. But the first Saturn, ruler of the Golden Age, was Adam, made from the earth, called Geb, the god of the earth in the Egyptian pantheon. Final Fantasy X is heavily steeped in and inspired by religion. The story of Sin is the destruction of the ages. Sin is a moon god and is considered an early prototype for Yahweh, whom the name of Yu Yevon is based upon. The world as it is today is like unto the war between Zanarkand and Babel. 1,000 years ago there were Machina capable of destroying the whole world. Sin is the whale of Leviathan, a biblical beast from the sea that will change the age. He is the Lord of the Old Testament, who is Saturn, and Shiva, who joined with the final Aeon, the man of sin, slays the Leviathan and then himself becomes the Leviathan or sin for the next age. There are 3 repeating types of ages every 6 or 7,000 years. The age of Brahma the Creator, Krishna the Preserver, and Shiva the Destroyer. Christ is based on Krishna. Christ dies once at the end of the ages. When Krishna can no longer preserve the age, Shiva destroys everything and we enter a new Aeon. Apostle Paul was Satan in the flesh. Kamari is linked with Saturn and thus Satan. He is the male form of Shiva with the blue skin and the trident. He has the broken horn or the little horn of the beast, which is Paulus, Apostle Paul, who has the thorn of Satan in his flesh. The Lord of the Old Testament is Yahweh, Yevon, Shiva, and Saturn, or Satan and Leviathan, as we may easily ascertain. He is the dragon who became the sea beast, and in so doing, Apostle Paul is baptized with scales falling from his eyes as the little horn. Every verse in Job 41 fits perfectly with Apostle Paul. Leviathan is not a literal sea beast, and every priest or maester of Yevon who says it is lying. Will he speak soft words to you? Will he make a covenant with you? Will you take him for a servant forever? So we have a talking dinosaur-like creature whom Christians will take for a servant who makes a covenant with them? Okay, it isn't a dinosaur. Leviathan is symbolic of Satan, the sea beast, and Apostle Paul. The sin of the moon, divide and rule. In Zechariah 11, Judas turns himself in. It is Judas who made the covenant with beauty and bands, who then decides to break his covenant. Give to me my price. So they weighed for my price 30 silver. This implies a scene where Judas is turning himself in as the Christ for the age of Pisces. Paul said, "Cursed is he who hangs on a tree," regarding Christ, and Judas hung himself on a tree. In Christian art, Christ was always depicted as the lamb or ram of Aries. The cross did not even appear until much later. Judas is Ject. He volunteers to become the final Aeon so that sin can be defeated for 10 years, which is an entire 200-year zodiac age for us, after which he will become the next sin, whale of Leviathan. At which point we arrive at Apostle Paul, or Apollyon, who ascends from the bottomless pit and goes into perdition. Titus and his companions finally prevail against sin in a seemingly more permanent matter, but that only lasts 2 years, and in later sequels sin has come back yet again, with some of it being quote-unquote left to our imagination in the Final Fantasy X will. In other words, figure it out for yourself. In a way, this is really quite an insult. The good thing about Final Fantasy X was that sin was finally destroyed, but it comes back 5 times sooner than if it had been destroyed by a final Aeon, as was the usual way of doing things. It has been left to us to imagine if the story of sin will continue indefinitely. Perhaps it cannot be said for certain, since the story of sin is the story of humanity's struggle with sin. Only we can decide how it will end. Seymour was found in sin for the 4th and final battle. Seymour thought by destroying everyone and becoming the next sin, he would be doing them all a favor. In terms of reality, this could represent a reluctant messenger who, seeing a world where humanity is hopelessly and completely enslaved via artificial intelligence to an oligarchy of pure evil through the means of central banking and religious enforcement, the biblical flood did not come until the whole world was declared hopelessly evil. As in the days of Noah, so shall the end be. This gospel will spread to all nations, and then the end will come. Even if we can't fight it, we had better start to learn from it. We have had and lost high technology in the past. Seymour is also the king of Babylon, Lucifer, who is called the King of Kings in 888, and Jesus Christ for the age of Pisces. It is Christ who is preserving the age and is scripted to be struck down at the end of the age, or the end of the world, since the Bible argues that this is the very last age of planet Earth, after which there will be new heavens and a new earth. The mothership in prophecies predict the return of Lemuria after the dragon's tail signifies a time of destruction for most. Possibly a pole shift or Yellowstone eruption, all that stuff is long overdue anyway. This is likely where time is reset, like a movie going back to the beginning of the ages, and a time loop called the Lake of Fire, into which death and hell are cast. Because for those who chose Christ/Krishna and reject Saturn or Shiva, there is the biblical promise of eternal life and the end of death. Those who inherit that age and the resurrection from the dead do not marry, neither can they die anymore. In 2 Esdras, the current world is made for many, but the world to come is made for few. They stand on the sea of glass and sing the new song of Moses, the new song of a new Exodus, having escaped Spira, the spiral of death, an eternal repeat of the 12 ages of the zodiac, the circle of ages, and the great year that is 26,000 years long in the lake of fire. Then again, perhaps this is just a delusion. In the Old Testament, they lived for thousands of years in Isaiah 65 when the Lord will create all things new, but this is not the same as it being impossible to die no matter what happens. Like, even if you were hit with a nuke, that sounds more like living in a computer generation. That's more like being unsent. Revelation 9 warns, during those days in which the beast is rising from the bottomless pit, men will seek death and desire to die, but shall not be able to. And in the Old Testament, those who oppose Israel in the last days, their eyes shall wither away in their sockets. They will grow old and die. Or maybe not. And that, as they say, is that. So, the blue blood Old Testament creator moon god, partly based on the blue-skinned Shiva the Destroyer, first turns into an elephant-like being, and then a destabilized form we shall call the beast. The heroes cannot contend with the beast on their own. Their bonds with loved ones and allies are what gives them the strength to stand and fight, and for the crystals or Christ alls to shine again. The beast turns into the woman of Babylon riding it. How can the beast and the woman of Babylon be one and the same? Yahweh Tetragrammaton is a five-sided star representing the human body. In Revelation 9, verse 5, a star fell from heaven, and to him was given the key to open the bottomless pit. It's verse 5 because it's talking about Yahweh, the five-sided star, and the star is regarded as him. The Old Testament God is really just an image of God created by the Pharisees themselves, in a book where the constant theme is that the Pharisees have done unspeakable evils. They are punished by their God, but ultimately their God forgives them, wipes clean their sins, and says he will destroy the rest of the world, saving them alone. This is the same as the creator in Final Fantasy IV After Years trying to destroy the blue planet, because the people living there did not evolve to their fullest potential. Sadly, humanity is infected with a disease known as God worship, king worship, celebrity worship, and it is the wickedness of the masses that creates the need for government in the first place. One bad apple spoils the bunch, and one person's actions often lead to the loss of liberties and privileges for everyone else. Indeed, the masses are more to blame than the Illuminati themselves, and there can be no heaven or on earth until the unworthy are cast into the lake of fire. Christians don't have a problem with this, but every judgment depends on the judge, requires knowledge of good and evil, and creates by necessity a fall of mankind. In the prophecies of Father Malachi, Petrus Romanus shall shepherd his flock, and then the terrible judge shall judge his people. Even if the judge be righteous and holy, the virtue remains the same. Ultimately, power and authority rule, and if that authority be evil, then right and wrong shall not be decided according to honest and universal values. The Holy Spirit is not a God of power, but a God of truth and love. Nevertheless, might makes right. The strong prey upon the weak. That is the law of the jungle, the way of the beast, and the way of nature. The internet is mostly white, and cyberspace is neither heaven nor earth. We can have a white throne judgment, but its virtue is not based in truth or love, but in power and authority. Therefore, I wonder if it will be just, or will it just be the third Adam, Saturn, using the knowledge of good and evil to judge the world and cause the fall of man. The end is the beginning is the end, and there is nothing new under the sun. The Pharisees are both the beast and the adulteress of Babylon simultaneously, and they shall hate the Gentile, Christian, or Catholic aspects of the woman and burn her with fire, because in the long run the agenda was intended to benefit only the Pharisees and the Illuminati elite. During the battles with Creator as the beast, his deterioration attack harms himself. What does the beast do except go into perdition? For the abomination of desolation, that is to say depopulation, is standing in the holy place and exalted as a holy thing. And we cry to heaven, but there is no God to be found, just men having become gods. Dark Knight makes an appearance in After Years, claiming to be the real Cecil. This was Abel killed by Cain the Dragoon, an obvious reference to Cain the murderer in the book of Genesis. Eve and Abel are the etymological roots for the word evil, and the prison of the fallen angels in the book of Enoch is called Abel's jail. In After Years, Cecil is unplayable most of the game, as he has been taken over and become the king of Babylon, the kingdom of Baron. As king of Babylon, controlled by the Creator, who in the Old Testament causes all nations to serve the king of Babylon, goes out to capture the crystals just as his brother Golbez did in the first game. The Maenads turn against the rampaging Creator, giving their lives to fight him, and one of them, the youngest, is redeemed and survives. This symbol speaks of internal civil war among the powerful, which along with the heroes is our only hope.